You can never please everyone. And sometimes the really difficult decisions, they just need to be dumbed down to a really easy decision. For example, there were certain areas of the business that nobody really wanted to touch. And they were a little bit scared of it, or it was a really complicated problem. And they were kind of referred to them as ghosts. We said, you know what? Let's build a team of people that are going to bust the ghosts. Hence Ghostbusters. There are kind of 5 things that I care about. Number 1, always put your people first. Number 2, simple decisions where necessary. Number 3, don't try and please everybody. Number 4, have a playbook, but be ready to adapt it. And number 5.
Welcome to FinTech Leaders. I'm Miguel Armaza, and I'm fascinated by the company's reshaping financial services, which is why I co-founded Gilgamesh Ventures, a FinTech fund where we have backed almost 50 FinTech companies worldwide. And over the last 5 years, I've recorded over 350 conversations with the top leaders in FinTech to extract how they think, what they've learned, and insights that can be helpful to builders in FinTech. In this episode, I sit down with returning guest Dan Westgarth, COO of Deel, the company that's redefining how businesses hire and pay talent anywhere in the world. Deel has grown into one of the most valuable private tech companies on the planet, and in 2025, they crossed over $1 billion in revenue, achieved a $17 billion valuation, and paid out over $22 billion in payroll globally. Dan oversees an organization of 3,300 people across more than 100 countries. And before Deel, he had a legendary early round as an operator at Revolut. In this episode, we discuss how Deel built their elite problem-solving team called the Ghostbusters, why they have killed one-on-ones, how they've integrated over 10 acquisitions, and the massive bet that they're making on building their own payroll processing engines worldwide. Dan, thanks for joining. Welcome to FinTech Leaders. I'm very excited to get this recorded again after almost 3.5 years or so. One thing I definitely want to talk about is I've heard you are world-class at focusing and committing on execution. And I heard this from our very good friend in common, Adi Goel from Sardinia, of course, who worked with you at Revolut. So then how do you stay focused?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast, and thanks to Adi for the compliment. I think operators have an unlimited list of problems that they could be working on. So quantifying those problems, ordering them by impact is really the key to staying focused and executing quickly.
And then when it comes to not just you, but your team, how do you get everyone rowing in the same direction?
The understanding behind the why we're doing something is really important. I think if people don't understand why we've made a decision or why we're doing something, they're not truly bought in and truly motivated, and they'll work hard regardless. But when they understand exactly why we're doing something and the value that's going to deliver for the business, that's when things start to work really fluidly, and you kind of have that eureka moment and everything just works and falls into place.
Yeah. And I guess that's one of the main reasons why business leaders, founders, they have to be reminding the vision and communicating the why to their team, to the company, on and on and on, essentially forever, right?
Yeah, totally. I think it's not just top down against the overarching goal or the North Star of the business. It's actually in the details of the problem. So I know maybe we're changing a certain product or we're changing a certain process, but actually like understanding the downstream impact and how that gets to the North Star, or how that gets to the final goal of the business. That's the part that's important.
Then another thing I hear you are very good about, and I've seen this firsthand, is your ability to simplify complex problems or complex concepts and communicate them in a very simplified way, but that gets the message across. How do you think about doing this?
Most complexity is just noise, legacy assumptions, opinions, edge cases, or sometimes fear of actually making a decision. I found that managers often make complexity because they're just scared of solving the problem. So we tend to reduce things to its kind of core truth or first principles, and then communicate it simply. Write down the problem statement in its most simple form. And then you can align people around the problem. You can get to mental clarity, and then you can go in and solve it.
Then let's talk about your expansion strategy, because Deel has just expanded almost like no other company over the last several years. I mean, the company is 6 to 7 years old, and you've gone from a mono product company to a 10 product institution. So maybe share a bit the journey on product expansion, sales, customer segments, brand expansion, right?
Mm-hmm.
What have been some key inflection points?
Well, I think they're all separate vectors. And maybe let's start on product. We started out as a single product business, and I remember moving from single product to 2 products was terrifying. We were very, very scared and worried about that. We started out as a contractor invoicing platform, and then we moved into an employer of record. And since then, we now offer more than 10 different products. A geography standpoint, we've always been global. We were global from the get-go. So businesses from anywhere around the world could use our product to be contractors anywhere around the world. And I think that was really helpful. It meant that our regulatory stack was almost optimized from the get-go. And similarly, the tech stack was optimized from the get-go. So we had just like simple things such as onboarding, and we had all of those countries on the drop-down list. We had all of the different entity types. The back-end architecture was aligned to that. So it made launching those subsequent products and scaling pretty easy from that perspective. I think where it gets more complicated, and I think this is often overlooked or looked at too much, is the go-to-market perspective. So I think those that look at it too much, they really obsess about go-to-market, and then they go single country, single product, really deep, and they try really hard to get product market fit, and then sometimes it doesn't work and they need to pivot or whatever else. For us, we went very, very broad with that one product into 2, serving these different customers around the world and different segments, different size customers, SMBs through to enterprise. That was really challenging and still is really challenging. And if you think about today, we're now multi-product, multi-geography, multi-segment, and even multi-sector. So the way that we onboard all of those customers is really, really challenging. And I think that's part of the barrier to building a $100 billion company. Like actually figuring all of that out is what's kind of the barrier to that. Finally, brand. I think brand will be a big part of what we do over the next few years. You've probably seen our partnership with Arsenal, where we're going to be doing all of their kind of HR and payroll. So I'm really excited about that. But adapting the social media strategy, adapting the marketing strategy to align with everything else. You know, how can we speak to customers in different geographies? How can we speak to those different segments in different industries? I think that's really, really exciting, and also another barrier that we need to break down and unlock to that huge opportunity.
A couple of questions around this topic. When you launch a new product, how do you make sure you have product market fit for that product?
Yeah, so we typically launch products that customers want. So our thesis is if one or 2 customers want it, then there are hundreds of customers, maybe thousands of customers that want it, and then we will iterate upon the product until it kind of fits the market more widely. So that's actually how we went from single to dual product. And we had customers that said, okay, we love using you for contractor payments. Can you build an employer of record for us? And it was like one customer that persuaded us to do this because the ARR on the table was pretty large. And we were like, actually, okay, we'll do it. And then fast forward 5 years, it's one of our biggest products at the business.
How do you structure company leadership with regards to all of these dimensions, right? Do you have a head for every country, a GM for every product? You know, maybe there's many ways to structure it.
First thing to think about is separating front office and middle and back. So front office is sales. They're a separate organization. In there we have regional leaders, country leaders, segment leaders, sometimes even industry leaders. I'll give a couple of examples. In Europe we have Benelux, we have the DACH region, we have Nordics. etc. Within those regions, we'll then have different team leaders for different segments. And that model is kind of replicated around the world. Of course, there are some nuances in different geographies, but generally speaking, it's consistent. Then we go into back and middle office. This is where it gets really interesting. So the core business, which is payroll, that's run by myself and Alex. We're kind of the general managers of the core business. And that core business moves billions of dollars around the world, and it's representing most of our revenue. After that, we have a series or a range of adjacent businesses, IT leasing to immigration to expert services, whatever else it might be. Over each of these businesses, we have a general manager. And the general manager is essentially the CEO of that line. They're responsible for making strategy decisions, for the architecture, for the go-to-market, everything you'd expect the GM to do. What's really important is to think about what's below the GM. So we have a traditional matrix structure. We have a head of product, we have a head of ops, we have a marketing person, we have a legal person, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a typical matrix structure. So each GM has that function available to them, but the function is reporting into a functional VP.
One of the most interesting topics I certainly want to hear from you is this team of Ghostbusters that I guess you and Alex co-lead or you lead. Maybe you tell me a little bit about that. Who are the Ghostbusters?
Yeah, the Ghostbusters are effectively a team of chief of staff type profiles. We never liked the title chief of staff. We found it to be rather corporate. So the story behind the Ghostbusters is as follows. There were certain areas of the business or of operation that nobody really wanted to touch. And they were a little bit scared of it, or it was a really complicated problem. And they were kind of referred to them as ghosts. And we said, you know what, let's build a team of people that are going to bust the ghosts, hence Ghostbusters. So they're a team of 5 or 6 people who report into me, and they focus on problems that they are able to solve almost independently. They're typically cross-functional problems. They're typically pretty gnarly problems, and they do a really good job.
What kind of profile do these people have to have? Are they mostly mercenaries, or can you have a missionary in that role?
Yeah, I would tend to sway towards classifying them as mercenaries, but I can't, because at the end of the day, they're very mission orientated, and that's what gets through the cross-functional conversation. That's kind of how we cut through those cross-functional challenges. If they were straight missionaries, they would just go in and kind of upset everybody. But I think generally the team likes working with the Ghostbusters because they know that gnarly problem is going to be solved.
Right, because they're going after what that particular, let's say, product team doesn't want to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, people candidly are asking for the Ghostbusters. I'd even go as far as saying, begging for the Ghostbusters. Like, please, can you assign me a Ghostbuster for this project? I'll give you a really pointed example of what Ghostbusters solve. So we had a sales commission problem a couple of years ago. The sales commission process was essentially running on Google Sheets. And we would have somebody from RevOps who would download different data from Salesforce and then different data from the Deel application and triage this across Google Sheets, and then use Google Sheets to use formulas to calculate sales commissions and then pass on to payroll. It was a really horrible process. What's really horrible about it is the people involved or adjacent to the problem didn't know how to solve it. And the solution to the problem was hire more people. And it was actually hire more RevOps people. I'm not sure if you know much about RevOps, but RevOps is a very challenging topic to hire for. The people are often difficult to get hold of. They have long notice periods. They're rather expensive. And that just created lead time and more political complexity. So we were like, okay, no, let's bring in a Ghostbuster to solve this problem. And within 10 days, we built a working MVP. And within 3 weeks, that working MVP was fully productized and deployed to the application. And the Google Sheet was deprecated. It was shut down. So we went from this really horrible process that nobody really wanted to touch. And the only solution on the table was to hire 2 or 3 people, which would probably cost the company hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even $500,000. And no, we brought in a Ghostbuster, and a Ghostbuster solved that end to end within a number of weeks.
So if now there's a pool from teams to work with the Ghostbusters team, how do you pick? I imagine there's a big pipeline, right? It's a big company, lots of problems. How do you pick where do they focus on?
It all goes back to quantification by impact. So Ghostbusters, to a certain extent, are autonomous. They will even do the quantification of problems themselves, and they will come to me and say, hey, this is a huge impact problem. It'll take 3 or 4 weeks to solve it. Can I go do it? And we'll be like, yeah, sure.
Got it. And so is it impact on revenue, or is it going to be impact operationally on operational costs? Like, what kind of impact are you looking at?
I mean, it's all of the above. I'd also include as a major theme, customer demands, particularly on the enterprise side. If an enterprise customer wants us to do something in a certain way, we need to ensure that it's done to a really high standard. And we probably need to remove or work with some legacy infrastructure. So building out an onboarding process for an enterprise customer or a billing process for an enterprise customer, these are good examples of Ghostbuster projects.
I know something that is definitely important to you is your approach to performance management, right? And especially as a fully remote distributed company, I think I've heard you talk about this before, your intentionality and how do you approach performance management is definitely something that should be highlighted. Maybe tell us a bit about it.
We put a lot of emphasis on the process and systems, and we're not able to walk through the office and walk by everyone's desk and see what's up, which is quite a nice unbiased to have. I'd say that our problem was a little bit unique in the sense that we're the largest remote first company in the world. So we needed to build out tools that worked for us. There was no kind of off the shelf software that would do what we wanted. So within Deel Engage, which is a Deel product, we've built a goals system. And goals are essentially KPIs. And these KPIs are mostly automated. So let's say that I'm a salesperson and I have a revenue target. The performance of that KPI automatically queries our database every day. So the person holding that KPI is able to log into the tool and they're able to see how they're tracking towards that goal. And it kind of looks like a stock ticker. Now, hopefully it's a bull market and it's going up and it's in the green. And building out that habit and that mechanism of checking KPIs daily across the organization is really powerful.
I was just going to say, it's almost like a hedge fund trader mentality, right? You can actually measure your performance daily. So does that mean that everyone, no matter the role, not just sales, they have to have quantifiable KPIs?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be able to measure everything.
Yeah. That's the vision. Of course, there are some exceptions. In addition to those quantified KPIs, we also look at the other side. We look at qualitative data too. So we rate everyone against our core values at the end of each quarter.
Can you tell us about some of these tools? How did you build this internal tool where you can actually measure everything?
We wanted to build out a goal system to measure the performance. You know, if I think of Deel 5 or 6 years ago, that was done off of a Google Sheet, and then we used some third-party software, some of the leading names, and we weren't quite happy with kind of the details on how they were working. So we decided to build out our own software. And the V1, you set a goal, and each quarter managers would log into the software and update the goal. At the end of the quarter, we would then do an assessment based on the performance against the goal and the rating against our core principles. And it just felt like a very clunky, time-consuming, and quite a disjointed process. So we said, okay, can we put a query behind each goal, and can we ensure that query is querying against our database? I'll give you another example. The revenue one is really, really easy. Let me give you a more abstract one. Let's say you're working in customer support, and each customer support agent has a score, which is a combination of how quickly they reply, their customer satisfaction, and a few other factors. And so every customer support agent has a score. That score is not only displayed in the goal system, but it's also used for performance compensation. So those two things are directly linked. And that also creates a really nice experience for our operations team, because they're not having to wait for the end of a periodic process. They're able to see their performance daily and then get paid out quickly at the end of the performance cycle.
Are there any tools, and maybe the answer is no, but are there any tools that you've built internally for yourself that then you've productized?
Yeah. So many actually. And there are a number that we haven't productized and exposed externally yet, but I want to. Really proud of our Wikipedia, our treasury management system, and even our internal ticketing system. We call it Workbench, and that's an area where all operational tickets come to you and then assigned, and SLA is tracked, and escalations are possible too.
So help us paint the picture. You mentioned there are 10 products that Deel offers today. What are the top, let's start with the top 3, and just let's talk a bit about the scale of the company, because at this point, you're one of the largest tech companies in our industry, not just in fintech, but tech widely. What are the products driving this growth?
Mm-hmm. Well, it really starts with Payroll. And Payroll can mean many different things. It can mean paying contractors. It can mean paying employees. It can mean paying employees of record, where we legally employ the people. This is kind of the headline. And if I think of the different subtypes of Payroll, that's going to be your top 3. After this, it's anything surrounding HR. So we have a HR information system. We have an IT leasing product. We have an immigration as a service product. And many, many others. The way that we've organized ourselves internally is we have general managers sitting over all of those smaller adjacent businesses which are now scaling. So, for example, I have somebody called Christine, who is the general manager of Deel Immigration, and she has a mandate to scale that business to over $1 billion in revenue in the next 5 years, which is going to be amazing. If you think about those 10 or so adjacent businesses we have, the opportunity for each of them as a standalone is a huge opportunity, or has a huge opportunity. If you think about coupling them with the Deel customer base and the Deel payroll, it just maximizes and amplifies that opportunity.
Maybe share the story of the benefits business that what I think is very personal to you.
The benefits business is an interesting one. I was speaking with a founder recently, who's doing really great things, got product market fit, on the Series A stage and scaling. And I almost felt bad telling him the story, but I told him that we'd launched the benefits business, and that benefits business we're already doing more than $100 million in ARR. And I think that's really testament to the amplification that the Deel customer base and the Deel payroll platform has for these adjacent businesses.
Going forward, what other adjacent products do you think that Deel could go into? Because if you're serving enterprises around their payroll, HR needs, there's a lot more that companies need.
I think the list is very long. And, CFO back office is a really interesting topic. Consumer fintech is a really interesting topic. I think for the time being, we're going to stay focused on what we've got, but the opportunity is certainly there.
So is it as simple as thinking, how does Deel become a $100 billion company? Is it as simple as, hey, we have 10 products, each one of them could become a $1 billion revenue product? Something I've noticed in 2025 is how investors and operators beyond fintech have realized that, fintech is going to create multiple $100 billion companies, 100 plus. So I think to me that's exciting. I can definitely see the trajectory of how Deel could become one. Is that part of your vision?
I think it's certainly part of it, but it's not our only bet. Enterprise is really interesting. We're selling into enterprise right now. We're onboarding enterprise right now, but the opportunity is bigger than I think we even realize at this moment. After this, also broadening into more segments. I mentioned at the start, or rather sectors. I mentioned at the start that we're multi-sector, but how do we go really deep in some of those sectors? There are some areas that have very challenging HR and payroll circumstances, and really providing an excellent service there is something that's also really interesting. It's sectors like oil and gas, temporary workers, on-site workers, things like this are getting really, really exciting for us.
So then not long ago, I was talking to you and you mentioned that you had an upcoming trip because you were traveling to help integrate a company that Deel had just acquired. Deel has acquired, I think, about 10 companies over the last 6 years. I might be getting the exact number wrong. But the point is that Deel has been more acquisitive than not. And you've actually personally led some of those integrations, right? Maybe share a bit about the acquisition strategy, and then we'll talk about the integrations.
Yeah, I think certainly done more than 10 acquisitions to date. All of the integrations have been led by my team. Our strategy has a few different prongs. This isn't all of them, but I'll give you some of the kind of overarching ones. I think one has been to acquire product expertise. These are typically smaller businesses where we've acqui-hired and the founders have come on and they've been the general manager for that product within Deel, or perhaps the head of product, have really accelerated our progress in certain areas. After this, we've had some acquisitions that have helped us with infrastructure. Maybe it's regulatory infrastructure, maybe it's technology. And then finally, on the revenue side, can we actually buy some revenue at a decent price, integrate it, improve the margin, and then also accelerate the vision into a certain sector or a certain geography? They're the typical pillars of a strategy.
How do you succeed at integrations? That's arguably the hardest part of M&A.
No integration is the same, that's for sure. Every single one is bespoke. And we put together the playbook and revised it 100 times, but I found that you need to flex it every single time. You can never please everyone. And sometimes the really difficult decisions, really hard decisions, they just need to be dumbed down to a really easy decision. For example, you're trying to figure out where to put a person or a team of people. If you're in finance, you live in finance. It's as simple as that. It doesn't really matter what your specialization is or the history is. What I'm trying to say here is that there are a lot of opinions and unnecessary complexity on exactly where someone should live or how they should be compensated or who they should report to. And often you just need to tune out all of the noise and make the decision in a very basic, almost dumb, sterile way. And that has been really, really helpful. In summary, there are kind of 5 things that I care about. Number 1, always put your people first. Number 2, smart decisions where possible, simple decisions where necessary. Number 3, don't try and please everybody. Number 4, have a playbook, but be ready to adapt it. And number 5, make the hard calls quickly.
On not trying to please everybody, I think that this is crucial for especially to move quickly, right? How do you decide who to please?
You need to think about the objective. So depending on the theme that the acquisition aligns with, are you buying the business from a revenue and business perspective, or are you buying regulatory infrastructure, or are you buying product expertise? I would optimize for that. So let's take the first example. You're buying the business, you're buying the revenue. Well, you need to optimize for the customers. What's going to keep the customers the happiest? What's going to keep the retention the highest?
Then you have, we've talked about a different number of teams that report up to you. First of all, how big is your organization? And then how does your typical day look like? I imagine maybe there isn't a typical day, but take us through like a day in the life of Dan.
Deel is around 7,000 people, just over. My organization is 3,300 people. We're in more than 100 countries these days. It's the mixture of run the business operators and change the business, ops and strategy managers. My day starts pretty early. I'm definitely an early bird. The first thing that I do is probably check my Whoop on my WhatsApp. I like to know my sleep score and my metrics, and then I check my WhatsApp to see if anything urgent has come up through the night. I typically take it pretty easy in the morning for the first 20 or 30 minutes. I then go into a pretty standard routine of email and then Slack, and I think that's a really important ritual, not only to respond to everything and keep it moving, but also look out for unexpected items that are coming your way, and write those down and start to orientate your day around that. And then after this, it's pretty regular. I'd say a mixture of functional leadership, customer relationship building or maintenance, and then actually building stuff. At Deel, the C-suite are very much involved in building, and I think that speaks volumes to our apolitical organization. There's not an amount of politics at Deel, and that means that we can keep things moving quickly and keep building things.
When do you have time to work out? Because I know you're a big exercise guy.
I do something active every day, usually the morning. Another thing I'll highlight is we don't like meetings at Deel. We think meetings should only happen when necessary. And I persuade my directs not to do one-on-ones, because people sit on topics until the one-on-one, and that just delays things. If there's a burning topic, send a Slack message now or call the person now in the moment. Don't sit on it. You might be waiting 7 days or 6 days for the next one-on-one. And that shocks people a little bit because some people, they need the one-on-one for the structure, and it's something that we don't like to do. Structure yourself with your notes, keep yourself organized. And one-on-ones are good, especially when there are deep things to talk about. But on a transactional level, just do the thing now and keep it moving.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed about you is you are very good about sending messages that are maybe not too long, but also not too short, but really encapsulates what could have been a meeting in a different set of circumstances. You turn it into a message and you get the job done. That sounds like that is a crucial part of the documenting, being very good at note-taking and then summarizing what you want to come across. Is your day just a lot of writing and a lot of summarizing what you're trying to accomplish?
I think a lot of the value that I add is strategy in what we should do and why we should do it. So people have the understanding of why this matters to the business. So maybe we're making a change, maybe we're building a product a certain way, maybe we're going to deal or handle a customer a certain way. I think that's a lot of the value that I add. And then that combined with the urgency, I'm very impatient, as are the other leaders at the company. Displaying that impatience somewhat shamelessly, I think, is really, really important. Demand updates, keep the energy rate high. But yeah, I'm not doing a ton of writing. I think I write in short form. If I need to explain something deeply, I'll often record a video note and send it to people. They can listen back to the video note I'm talking about, then they can copy the transcript and paste it into their AI of choice and have it summarized. So that's the kind of Deel way of doing things.
Yeah, and then they can turn it into a PowerPoint if they want it through AI as well.
Yeah, also on the flip side, that doesn't work every single time, right? If I send a video note to somebody, they might not understand what I'm on about, and they might come back with some questions, right? No, you've missed the mark here, or I haven't explained it properly. And then that's when I call this required. Maybe then we'll get on the phone and it'll be an ad hoc phone call, or it'll be a structured team meeting on the calendar. And that's when you'll really talk through things and ensure that everyone is aligned around what we're going to do and understands the why. I think that's really important. Otherwise, you have people that are working somewhat blindly, and then they don't do their best work because they don't understand it. The heart isn't truly in it. I think understanding is really, really important.
Then I want to talk about like a few rapid fire questions that I think we're going to be interesting to hear your philosophy around some of this. In 60 seconds or less, right? What's something that you believed early in your career that you no longer believe?
I believe that careers are or should be linear. I never wanted to have a career because I'm an entrepreneur deep down. I never wanted to have a career because I thought the progression was always linear. But now I actually believe in the tech industry and other industries that careers aren't linear, especially in startups.
What's a company metric that you obsess about and you watch very closely, and why?
Headcount, which I think you weren't expecting me to say. Why? Because more headcount generally means inefficiency. Controlling that, being aware of that, understanding that it's my job, basically. My job is to keep the business efficient and moving quickly. If headcount gets out of control and gets too large, then the business will be compromised.
Where do you think headcount would be a Deel if we hadn't had the last 3 years of AI?
It would be larger, for sure. I don't know, but it would definitely be larger.
What's a contrarian opinion that you hold about the future of work or future of tech?
I don't know how contrarian it is, but yeah, I think the future of work is a global, borderless world where anyone is able to access or be accessed through a job market. I still don't think we're there yet. I speak to people from different countries who just seem so foreign to them to work for a US company or a European company. But then that infrastructure exists for every customer that uses Deel. But that isn't common knowledge yet. I think if you really dig down deep into it, people don't really believe that. So it's contrarian.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of companies have had a strong return to work from the office. So it is contrarian, I think, to many. But I think it's quite cool, the company that helps people work remotely is the largest remote only company.
Yeah.
You guys definitely are walking the talk.
For what it's worth, I don't think what I've said is tied exclusively to remote work. I think that it's easier than ever for customers or other businesses to have offices or satellite offices in any country in the world. And that's what I'm really speaking about. Some of the employees will, of course, be remote, but others will be working from satellite offices or maybe on a hybrid basis.
What's one bet, a deal that you are making now, but most people won't understand for a few years?
Building out our own payroll processing engines. And the way that I can explain this to people that follow fintech is very similar to card processing. If you look at the fintechs that have really innovated on the card side, they've built out their own processing capabilities. And with that, you can do so many cool things with the card and with the transactional experience. And the exact same thing is true for payroll. And we're making a huge investment into building out those processing engines right now in just about every major country in the world. And that will put us in full control of the payroll experience.
Sounds like a big project.
Huge project.
So then what's a book that you either have gifted often or you often recommend and obviously you enjoyed?
It is going to be Who? A Method for Hiring, which is by Jeff Smart and Randy Stree, I think. Yeah, it's basically a book on how to hire effectively at scale.
You know, I didn't know that was going to be your answer. I ordered it not long ago because another guest recommended it. I believe it was René Lasser, the founder of Bill.com.
Really? Okay, yeah, there are some really simple tips and tricks in interview question, interview process.
Name a founder, CEO, or just leader that you deeply admire and why.
Has to be my former boss and CEO, Nikolai Stravonsky from Revolut. I really admire and continue to admire his way of thinking about problems.
Dan, this has been amazing. Before we go, maybe just an open question. What are you excited about going forward? You know, you have, I know, some exciting years ahead, some exciting plans of everything you're building. Maybe share kind of what gives you optimism, because I know you're a very optimistic person. What are you excited about?
It's a really nerdy answer to the question, but I'm really excited about internal tools at Deel. I think internal tools give the team superpowers, and that filters down into customer experience. With stronger internal tools, we're able to run the business more efficiently. We're able to serve customers better. I think that combined with the other things that we've talked about today in terms of broadening segments, multi-product acquisitions, but internal tools are what really give the team superpowers. So that's probably what I'm most excited about.
You know what I'm excited about? I think some of those internal tools might become productized and become huge businesses in and of themselves.
I hope so.
Good. Well, Dan, thanks for doing this. I always learn a lot talking to you. Looking forward to our next hangout in person.
Yeah, man. Me too.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this great episode with Dan Westgarth from Deel. If you want more interviews, make sure to subscribe, follow, and leave a review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your shows. It helps and truly means a lot. And if you have any suggestions or thoughts about the show, just drop me a line on LinkedIn or over email. Signing off till next week, I'm your host, Miguel Armaza.